She's funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Karis' Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karis, and this is I have a guest edition to Karis' Comedy Corner, and I'm very, very excited because not only is she one of my favorite comedians, but I feel like I have not seen her since childhood. That's really that long. But hang tight for a minute. Just got to do our ads. As you know, we love our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Baywalk Marketing. Go to their website, baywalk.net, for all of your advertising and marketing needs. They can help you with any type of a flyer. They can help you with your social media. They can help you analyze the demographics of your business. And they are experts in the Greek community. Go to their website, hollywoodgreeks.com, for all of your Greek entertainment needs, and hellenicfestivals.org to find out where there is a Greek festival near you. I promise you that in 2021, the Greeks will find a way to still sell souvlaki live somehow, some way. And our other sponsor is SelectFlex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What's an orthotic? It's an insert. What do you do with it? You put it in your shoe. I'm just answering all the questions that I know you would have. It is one of the best over-the-counter orthotics I have ever had, and I've had the custom ones that I basically can't afford anymore, but these are terrific. They are sturdy, and the beauty of them versus the other over-the-counter ones is that they have an adjustability in the arch, and you can adjust the arch to firm, or extra firm, depending on what your needs are. So whether you're jogging, you can pump it all the way up, or if you're just standing on your feet all day, you can put on the lower setting, whatever you need. They have a 30-second video on their website. Go to their website, selectflex.com, SelectFlex.com, and they'll show you how it works. It's a really easy, key, adjustable, beam, state of the art. They tell me to say all these things, but I never remember. It's patented, so don't try to steal it. And for Karis Comedy Corner listeners, there's a 25% discount if you type in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25, because you feel like family. SelectFlex.com. I always say this: these are the best invention since suitcase on wheels. We know how good that turned out. All right, so I'm so excited, because our guest, who is a stand-up comedian, an actress, and author of 2 books, she's written tons and tons of articles. She's the host of a show on NPR called Ask Me Another. And when I am in the car, back in the day when we went to live shows and I was in the car and I would be flipping the radio, and yes, I said radio, and no, I don't have satellite. I still flip and turn, and I still have Hotmail, I hear her voice and I stop, and it makes me happy. And it's such a great show. I'm sure you've heard it's very, very popular. And she is a fairly new mom. When I knew her back in the day. So give it up for my guest, Ophira Eisenberg.
Yay! Thanks, Ellen. I know when you said haven't seen her since childhood, it's weird because I haven't seen you. Obviously, I'm seeing you right now virtually, and you're real. But it's been a while, and there's this. I feel like it's because we both are in New York comedy world, but there's this thing that happens where it's so hard to explain, that where you get in modes, you get in sort of schools, we're fish, and you swim around somehow with a bunch of people, and then somehow you end up on the schedule with other people. It's very bizarre, but it's been a while.
I say this, that there's the New York comedy community, there's the LA comedy community. Sometimes the two shall meet, people go cross. Although I think more people seem to go from New York to LA, or vice versa. And they're very different types of scenes. The layout is different. The whole vibe is very different. And then within our community, we all know each other. And then there's the girls, us ladies, so the subset of the female comedians, and sort of our camaraderie, which I love. I love all the women, and you and I sort of came up toward the same time. And like you said, school, it's like we've had classes, we were class of the early 2000s, right? And I remember the first time we met, I might have known you from a club sort of, show it from that perspective. But the first time I really got to talk to you was we went to Governor's, and we were at Governor's Comedy Club on Long Island, great club. And we had a fun show. And then we all went to a diner after.
We all went to a diner.
And it was so fun. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I thought of you when we were sitting there, and I was watching you, and I was fascinated because, first of all, you're from Canada, I should say. You are Canadian.
Yeah. Yes, I'm
So
Canadian.
I'm a New Yorker. I still to this day find it fascinating how people move from a completely different place and come here. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I swear, this is how I felt. So I'm glad we're getting to do this podcast, so I can exactly tell you what I thought. I was like, this woman is so smart. She is so bright. So I'm telling you, I can hear, this is, I think before your books, I can hear the writer in you. I mean, you didn't realize that, I was watching you, and I really was in awe because you really just had it together. And then like later when I went up through your bio just now, because I didn't know sort of like your back bio, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course she went to McGill, and of course she got a degree in theater, and you've had this long pedigree. And it's really impressive, and it shows, and you've done so many things. The mom.
Oh my God, that is so nice.
true.
Your reframing of my life is so much better than mine. It's so funny. I mean, someone's saying that it's like unbelievably flattering, but I spend most of my life, Ellen, and I'm sure you have your own thing with this, like being deathly afraid that I'm coming off like an idiot.
Because we stand on the stage and we say, all kinds of things.
Yeah, and also just like being a woman, like always you're sort of like, no, you're always kind of defending I feel like I have to defend my position a lot.
Right. Well, it's, even though it's 2021 and lots of things have changed, we even have now a female vice president, and, women, I mean, there's lots of women as CEOs and have done incredible things. But I don't know. I think there'll always be this underlying sort of, position
Yeah.
that we're in. And listen, it's fine. I mean, as long as you get treated with respect and you get to make what you get to make. I don't know if we can ever remove that. I feel like that's just something in the genes, at least.
It'll take a long time.
At least certainly within our lifetime, and so it's always still different for a woman to get on stage. And you've heard this a million times. I've heard this a million times. You're funny for a woman. Oh, I've never seen a woman comedian. It's like, really? Joan Rivers doesn't mean it.
Or I don't usually like women, but I thought you were, I enjoyed your act. That's like the worst. I think that's the one that every single female comic I know has received. Like, and the person that is telling you this, they mean it with all their heart. Like, they don't think that's an insulting thing to say.
Right. It's really, I don't know. It is what it is. And now we make fun of it, and we're secure enough to know where it's coming from. But it takes a long time to first of all, like, did they just say that? And this has come from women too, not just men.
Absolutely.
And just like, it's a strange. You can't really explain it. But every woman, if you stay in this long enough, will go through it for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My mother growing up as a tactic, she would sometimes advise me. She would go, Ophira, play dumb. Play dumb. It's going to be a lot easier. Just play dumb. Stop fighting. Play dumb.
I love that. It's less exhausting is what it is.
Yeah, right?
Oh. I have to ask you about your beautiful name that's very theatrical. So what is there an origin? Is there a story to it, or?
So Ophira, is just as a quick tangent about my name, it is a thing of my life. A thing of my life. My name is that I joined this like, it's sort of like it's a book club kind of group, mostly reading books, but it's also sort of like accountability. There's a little bit of accountability aspect to it. I've never done anything like this, but pandemic brings out strange things in you. We're like, maybe I should try this. Maybe this would be positive. And they're women from all around the country. And someone wrote on, there's a Facebook group that goes with it. Someone wrote on the book, do you think you're the Ophira that I know? Now, I didn't know this person, and I didn't know what they were referring to, but I just wrote back, if you know an Ophira, good chances it's me. Because there's just not a lot of us.
I love it. I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
So the name is it's a Hebrew name, but it's very Israeli. And because you say Hebrew name, you could go anything from like Rachel to Sarah, these, but it's not only Hebrew, it's Israeli, and it's the male version of my name is Ophir or Ophir, which is actually a very popular male name. So with a lot of these Hebrew names, you add an A and it becomes the female version. So Ophir and then Ophir and then becomes Ophira. And King Solomon, remember that guy? Way back. King Solomon named his first gold mine Ophira.
Wow.
And then it was actually a location. It was actually a place that was named Ophira. But now that place is part of Syria. And so it has a different name. It was renamed. So as lines are, and then around the year I was born, there was and I should actually figure this out exactly because I even forget it now, but there was someone in the Israeli government, I believe a wife of someone prominent in the Israeli government at the time, whose name was Ophira. So of the other Ophiras I have met, of which I've met 2 others, which I think is quite amazing.
Wow.
Here, one in Canada and one here, they are both around my age. And it's because of, I think, of this prominent person that all of a sudden came into the public eye in Israel. And, that's what happens.
That's so interesting. So is your family devout? Are you?
No, not at all. My father was Israeli. My mother was born in Holland. They're both passed away. They met during World War II. It's basically my father fought for the British. He was part of the liberation movement in Holland. My mother was a young woman in Nijmegen. He was a soldier, basically there to help liberate from the Germans. And they met, and then they married and lived in Israel for a while. My mother was actually raised Catholic, and then she converted. I think the way of conversion back then, I used to ask her, because I didn't even know that there was like kind of elaborate ceremonies to convert to Judaism until I became aware of that much later in life. And then I asked her, and she was like, yeah, but like, what are you talking about? You married and now you were Jewish. It didn't seem like a large process, but she did learn the language. I mean, she spoke Hebrew. She learned, to my point of view, growing up as a child, she did all the holidays. She knew all the stuff. She cooked all the meal. Like she knew it all. She knew it all better than anyone, as far as I was concerned. So.
Wow.
So I'm the youngest of 6, and although my father was brought up, more religious, I think the war just changed them, honestly, because it was very much about survival and starting from scratch. And so I think he was a little bit more focused on my older brothers and kind of sisters about trying to keep some sort of religion in the house with them. But by the time I came around, number 6, I was in public school, first kid in public school. I think they were just like, do whatever you have to do to just get figured out. So, but still traditional in the sense that I did not have a bat mitzvah because that's he was conservative enough in his thinking that girls don't get that. That's like a new thing.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought that was that was like the bar mitzvah. That was
Yeah, right. Just for the boys, though. He was like,
right.
no, no, no.
Right. No,
he-
yeah,
he-
I thought that was like mandatory for the girls, but that's more of
that's modern.
model. Yeah, I could definitely
I
see
mean,
that.
modern in a very old sense.
Yeah. Right.
You know, like
No,
modern as opposed to ancient.
right. Well, Israel, I mean, it doesn't get much older than that.
Yeah, right, right.
Have you ever thought about doing a play or a one woman, two person show about your parents? I mean, you are such an avid storyteller, and people like that, there's, first of all, there's so much history to it.
Yeah.
And there's, stories. And also, when you do things like that, you uncover other things. So
Right.
I'm asking this for two reasons. One is, well, as you mention it, and I know what a great storyteller that you are, and you like to, you like to act and write. And also because I am trying to put together a play, a one woman show about my grandmother who emigrated from Cyprus with her children. And I've sort of like laid it out, but I mean, there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot, I realize it's a lot to go into. It's not like, oh, you write a play, but what about you? Have you thought about
Yeah, I mean, it's come up in other pieces that I've written, sort of bits and things, but I've never done it in a sort of more chronological point of view. Like I guess I would have to figure out what the in is, but I've definitely mentioned it because I will talk about my stories, and I just as you grow up and have hindsight, I'm sure you're finding this with the story you're trying to tell, is that you realize how much of your life has this influence in it, even if it's for me it's my parents, for you even like a generation away. It's a big influence because these are big stories that for people, this is like the foundation of the building that we get to live in, basically.
Right.
So
great way to put it. Yeah.
And I don't know what it's like in your family, but my dad died when I was a teenager, and then my mother died fairly recently. So I feel like it's always there still is like some living members that I could interview, but at a certain point I would either have to fudge it,
which is okay. I mean,
which is okay.
But it's art,
Yeah, it just sometimes I think the idea, and this is something every writer I think goes through at some point when you're writing memoir, is the idea of like how can I stick to you? Your first idea is to stick to the truth. Like how can I get the facts about this? Yeah. And then I think the harder it comes, you start going like, well, I have A and I have C, and I'm just gonna have to create that bridge.
That's so funny. I'm so glad you said that. Oh gosh, we're so meant to have this conversation because I was exactly what you said. I was going through asking my aunt. I got the actually my uncle had the documentation from Ellis Island, like the docket, and I got that. And my grandmother, actually, her mother passed about 5 years ago. So I did, but I wasn't really thinking about doing this. But anyway, to your point, is that I did do a little bit of a storyboard, but I think I put it down because I'm like, okay, I have a lot of space that I have to like come up with. And plus it's a piece and it's a play. So you have to keep it interesting. You have to keep it flowing. So and then at one point I made a realization. It's like, it's okay. It's art. It's my interpretation.
Yeah, right.
You gotta get it on its legs. You gotta fill in the blank. Things, even of the most famous people, there's always things that are put in there.
Oh yeah, and and I think this is like some sort of thing that's been said 1,000 times, and I don't know who the quote is actually, or the origin of the quote is, but it's like, what story the story is told by the teller. That the story you're hearing is not the story. It's from that's who the story is from the teller. Yeah. So whoever tells the story is now telling the truth, like it or not.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
I love it. Tell us how you got from, so you're from Calgary originally? That's where
Calgary.
Yeah. I have to tell you something. I love Canadian audiences. And over the last 8 years, 7 years, I got to go up to Canada to do actually, there's a lot of Greeks in Canada.
Yeah.
And so I've been to Montreal a bunch of times, Toronto. I actually did a Greek show in Regina. And I'll never forget the phone call. This girl calls me up. She's like, "I got your name from so-and-so, blah, blah." This is like at least 5 years ago. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, where are you in Canada?" And she said, "Regina." And I go, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" And she said, "Regina." And I was like, okay, okay. And she goes, it's Saskatchewan. I'm like, okay. I mean, I know that. So she said, she said, we'd love to have you, but could you do me a favor and not make fun of, where, Regina? And I go, I'm a comic, right? Like, I like, you want me to come to a place called Regina and not address it? I'm all right. If you're paying me, I can skip it, but it's like I know what you just said. So it was an interesting show, but I have to tell you, I get there and I had to fly via Minnesota, Minneapolis.
Yeah, right. That sounds about right. Yeah.
It was a long trip. It was really because of the layover, and they were very, very nice people. They had a huge community, like 600 families. The priest was awesome. The church wasn't that big, but they have all these families. And what was so interesting was I went into they showed me the church, and they had this huge, huge chandelier, and it was made from Greece. And the priest was telling me that when we do the Easter midnight service, which is a huge thing for us, that this chandelier like just shakes by itself. I mean, I could totally see it in a place like this. Anyway, so that was really like, that was a very interesting experience. But and I also went to Ottawa. I did a couple of shows in Ottawa.
Oh yeah.
But I would say one of my most favorite shows. Do you know Angelo Tsaroukis, by the way? He is a Canadian comedian. He's also non-Greek stuff. Tsaroukis, he's a big guy. He lives in LA.
Yeah.
Russell Peters, they're like best.
Right.
So, and he's traveled all over with Russell, but he moved to LA. So actually, in the Greek community, Angela's like a rock star up there. So he said taking me around, and we did a show in Montreal, and I'll never forget. It was like at an event space, just this big, like it was like in a strip mall. And I walk in, the place was like incredible, like some club in Miami.
Yeah.
And there was 600 people. I have to say that was definitely one of the times I felt like a rock star. Like it was so much.
Yeah.
And they're just great. And then I've been to Ernie's Comedy Nest, and Yuck Yucks.
Sure.
And also the Yuck Yucks in Niagara Falls, which on the Canada side, which was very funny because when they said bring your passport, and I said why, and they said because we're on the Canada side. I said there's another side of Niagara Falls.
Why? Why is there another side?
I need to get out more. But anyway, all this to say, I love Canadian audiences. I think they're great. They get it. They're funny. They don't care. You could be politically incorrect. That's been my experience. So,
yeah, I mean, it's so, I feel like I don't have perspective on it anymore. I started, like the very first time I went up on stage to attempt stand up was in Vancouver. And, Vancouver, and I think I didn't know, because how would I know? I mean, it was fine, ultimately. I kept going. I don't think it was, it wasn't devastating. It wasn't great. It was what it is to go on for the first time. I don't even know if you hear what's going on when you're on stage for the first time. But I will say this, people came to that club. Like there was a comedy club, which when I moved to New York, nobody, I mean, now it's much better, but nobody would go to a comedy club. I mean, you had to drag people tooth and nail to go to a comedy club in the early 2000s. Like nobody wanted to go to a comedy club. Right. It was not cool. So, coming from, and even Toronto, like people would just go to the comedy club, and it was maybe some tourists, but it was really like part of what it was to live there, is that you would do that every so often. So it's kind of like that thing, like, I don't know how you find when you go to play the Greek community, but when I go to play shows for the Jewish community, some of them, yeah, they run the same gamut. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, everything in between. But the one thing you never have to worry about is that they don't know what they're going to see. Everybody in the Jewish community is like knows what stand up is. It's not like they know what. Sometimes like you'll do a road gig and you're like, these people have never been to a show before.
Right,
Like they don't even know what this is about.
right,
They don't get it. You have
right,
to
right,
teach
right.
them what to do.
101, audience
Yeah.
101.
I mean, we're going to go back to that again because once you think we're rusty, audiences are going to be rusty too. They're going to be like, how does this work?
I mean, let's just jump forward for a second, but I do want to kind of go back to how you got here. But have you been doing virtual I would imagine you've been doing about
Yes, I've been
I think you've
doing
been doing a lot of
all,
these type of, the podcasts and stuff. But I
yeah,
mean,
lots of podcasts, but I have been doing lots of virtual shows, and I did them. I kind of did them as soon as it started. I mean, I think in the beginning it was sort of fascinating, but it was awkward. And now it feels like more of just like, well, this is happening, and maybe I don't know. Maybe some of them will continue. I'm not really sure,
right, right.
because there are a couple. They are no replacement for live comedy, obviously, and there's no energy exchange. Which, as a performer, that's what you deal in.
And people are on mute, so you're
Oh
trying
my
to
god.
look into the camera of your computer. Don't want to put your eyes down too much. I mean, I don't have a very sophisticated setup. It's like me and my laptop. I mean,
Yeah,
I
me
you know
too.
what? I gotta tell you something. I got a lot of nerve that at my age, I don't have a ring light. Okay. The fact that I do everything without a ring light, and trust me, it's not because I'm narcissistic. It's just that I'm really bad with electronics. So I don't know what you need to get, but
I'm gonna get you a ring light. I'm gonna get you a ring light. They're $30 and they plug into the wall.
please send me the link of the whatever you got. I mean, I don't even know what I go on. I'm like, oh my God. It's like buying a car, I get very intimidated, but also like the background, it's because my bedroom is a mess. So like,
Yeah, oh, it's the
although
greatest.
although the background seems to be working because I
It's
usually
great.
I open up with I'm live in Times Square because that's
Yeah,
who's
it's great.
right. Like that's nobody's coming to New York. But I agree with you. I did my first virtual show about 10 days into when we were on our
Yeah.
official lockdown in March. And I'll never forget, it was some guy who I think he lives on the Upper East Side, but anyway, they fled to the Hamptons. Not all of us weren't lucky enough to do that. And
Oh
he
my god.
called me up and he said, we're bored and we need entertainment. So, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, you're fine. I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know how to do this.
Yeah.
So we set it up. He sent me the link and I'll never forget. So it was him, his, I think like girlfriend and her kids and his kids. They were in the basement. I don't know if he owned the house or he rented it or what, but it was in like the basement, the downstairs of this house. And he's trying to set up, and so people are meandering down. He's like, we just had a Thanksgiving dinner. They had a catered Thanksgiving dinner, and before me they had a magician. And I'm saying to myself, this is. So they sit down, they've already had the magician, and they sit down, they're like completely disinterested. The dog is walking back and forth in the thing. They're putting up their feet on the coffee table. I was speaking to like feet. It was so bizarre. And their connection was bad.
Of course.
So it was just, so anyway, but they contracted 45 minutes and 45 minutes was on the timer,
Yeah.
And I did my thing. And of course I wrote some new stuff, obviously, about the pandemic and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I just like went. And afterwards I was schwitzing and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. And then I did another, I can't remember, I did another one, but I remember by the third one, and that one was a show with other comics, which was good. And somebody was emceeing and everything. And actually that one, that third one, I got my groove.
And you were like, oh, okay, I know what this is right now.
Right. You look in, you do it and this and that. So I have to say, I agree with you. Like, want to get back out there. It's not the way it should be. I hope we don't get too used to this. But two things. One is that I've done shows where I probably wouldn't have gotten hired because they're in Washington or they're in California.
Totally.
So that's, so that's great, right? I mean, nobody was going to fly me out to, come to Orange County. And then in December, I had quite a few holiday shows because that was the point where people were like, okay, we usually have our Christmas holiday party.
Yeah, but now we have not exactly.
So I did wind up getting a lot, thankfully, knock on wood, a lot of work. And I've also kind of gotten used to putting as many people as I can on the screen and doing like a little crowd work. I've gotten much. I mean, I just did a show about an hour and a half ago, and there was only like 8 of them, so that was easy. But I've done birthday parties. This last month, 3 men called me to they were giving their wife a surprise birthday party, and they were doing it virtually.
Amazing.
So good. I mean, all good and all positive, but there is definitely something missing from that whole, interaction and really getting to talk to people. But I'm sure, we got our rhythm and we're okay until this cockamamie thing is over. And then.
Oh yeah. And I've done some outdoor shows. I haven't done one for a while because it's freezing out, but I know there's a bunch still happening. There's rooftops, and maybe if we clear a couple feet of snow, I'll do one again. And what I did notice after doing the Zoom shows, because the audio is still off on this in terms of just reaction time. I say something and there's just a delay, and everyone has different speeds going on their internet. So it does mess with your pacing and rhythm because you're usually sort of like get in this groove with the audience where you wait for the laugh and you tail it like this, and that's how. But now you just don't have that, so you kind of have to figure out your own thing and just go with it regardless of what's going on, if it matches the mood or not. And then I went back and did an outdoor show, which is outdoor, so you're already also dealing with like a pacing problem because it's not this like a sort of focused room. But I was a little like off there. Like I heard a live laugh, and then I was like, I gotta figure out. So it's like such a mind fuck doing this in all of these different scenarios.
And you know what? Thank God we're seasoned. So we're able to do this. Like, could you imagine the beginning of our career?
No way. I quit.
Right. 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 Exactly. I wouldn't last. I wouldn't last. It'd be just too challenging. You don't have the skill set for it. You don't have the material. You don't have the skill set. You don't have the confidence. Now we don't give a shit. We're just going to just go with it. Whatever it is, it is. We know our competence level. But oh God, it really is a challenge. But my heart bleeds for especially, at least like we're kind of getting around it a little bit, but for Broadway and
my God,
plays and that whole thing. And you were very involved with the Moth Theater.
Yeah.
And things like that, all the UCB closed.
Yes, the Moth is doing virtual shows though. Mm-hmm. They embraced it. Storytelling, it still has the same problems as stand-up with doing it like this, where it's like you do have to work around the fact that you're not getting immediate feedback. But it is possible storytelling can be a little bit more presentational, and so it kind of marries not so poorly. Like I think some stand-ups who are really used to messing with a crowd, and that was the energy of their act, you had to make a huge adjustment. If you're sort of someone that like you're kind of used to just like telling your jokes, you still hated it, but you could figure out a way just to be like, well, I can tell my jokes to a mirror, not ideal. I can tell it to one person, not ideal. I can tell it to a screen. But when your whole thing is like, look at your crazy shoes or whatever, that's a tough transition.
Right.
But
No,
you're right. I mean, Broadway, even music, magicians have done well. You know who's done well? Let me tell you something, Ellen. I was trying to figure out I have a little kid. He had a birthday, as everyone will have a birthday during the course of this thing, as it turns out. Uh, and and I was like, I wanted, I felt extra guilty because it's been not a great year to be a kid. And so I thought, all right, I'll try to do something outside. Can I hire some sort of child entertainment? And I was like, what could I hire that's live and socially distanced? And you know what occurred to me? Stilt walker, 6 feet up. I was like, this is New York. You can't go out, but you can go up.
you are a genius. That's
Almost, almost a genius. Because then I was like, I know someone that works with like circus acts and sideshow, and like he's gonna know someone. So I called him and said, hey, do you know? And he was like, absolutely. Gave me the names of 3 still walkers or performers that did that. They were all booked.
missed the boat. Well, I'm not, me on stilts is still really short, so I don't think it's.
Give me the tallest still walker you got.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. They were all booked. I was like, well, that's that idea. I'm done. I'm done.
Maybe they started this COVID thing.
Just to get some work. You'll see.
Okay.
We'll be the only act.
It came out of a circus tent, not a lab in Wuhan. So just, I have to ask you this though, before I get into another question I want to ask you, but so you came from Canada to New York. What was that, when that transition, what made you come here? And was this your first stop or was it via something else?
No, this was the first and only stop. And I think I always wanted to move to New York. I definitely had that in my head, even though I had no idea what it was. And then I had a friend from high school, a very close friend of mine from high school, living here because she went to fashion school here. And so I visited her a couple times, and I was really enthralled with the idea, but it did seem insurmountable. And then I started doing stand up, and I was doing stand up in Toronto. That was like really the place that I was, trying to do it in a real way rather than like a one off and then just freaking out. I was trying to do it. And New York's not far away from Toronto, and everyone talked about New York, and a lot of acts came up from New York to headline at the club. So it just seemed like a little closer, and I was trying to basically have the guts to do it. And then it was just I was in a relationship. I all of a sudden it was in a situation where it seemed like this could be it. I could just stay in Toronto, and that is the moment that you could call this sabotage or you could call it a move. But I was like, I am not. This is the moment where I either just go with this and see where we end up, or change it all. And so I decided to change it all. Broke up with the boyfriend. I was so scared about moving to New York that I actually did it secretly. Like my roommate obviously knew, a couple friends knew, my family knew, but I did it. I put all my stuff in storage and just kind of left for a few months with the idea that I would come back, because also all these Canadian comics, I'd seen it happen a million times. They would throw these going away parties, either moving to New York or LA, like, see you later, everybody, moving to the big time, like, can't hit me up for jobs, like when I'm like doing my television show. And then a month later, they'd be back.
Right.
Or whatever, 2 months later, 6 months later. And a little bit like it was harder than I thought, like it didn't work out, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. That's totally allowed to happen. I mean, everything's allowed to happen. And it's not even an easy answer as to how that did happen. It could have been very complicated. But I was afraid of being that person that had to be like tail between your legs. So I definitely wasn't going to, I mean, that's not my style anyways, to be like, see you later, suckers. But I was so afraid of failing that I just didn't even tell anyone.
Well, I would,
It's so much easier if I just told people and they could help me, but no.
Well, I'm very superstitious, so I'm with you. I probably wouldn't have said too much either. You know what I'm saying? Just because I'm a big, well, again, the Greek, Jewish people are also very superstitious, the kind of horror, we call it the mati, like I'm all about.
Right.
So I probably would. I think you did I think you did the right.
Thanks.
So you get here, and
Yeah.
what did you think? I mean, and I mean, Toronto's lovely, and it is
Yeah.
a city, but it's different.
Oh yeah, New York kicked my ass big time. I mean, first I was naive, and I did stay with my friend for a while, which, looking back, I didn't even understand what a huge thing that was. Because the idea of someone staying with me, like, are you kidding? All of our apartments are tiny. Like, this is not a place where, and she did not have a great place to stay. But I did, and I was also not. I was Canadian, so I did not have a work permit or visa here. So that was a huge thing that I had to work on, but that was a little bit later. And then getting around in the comedy world. So I did luckily find some, there was indie shows. It was at that point called the alt scene.
Yes.
So, a bar in the East Village here and something up by the subway over there. So I, would hang out there and try to get spots, and people were pretty nice. And then the clubs, which I was like, how do you do this? And how weird was it that nobody knew? Like, you would go, well, how do you get to play Caroline's? And there was no answer.
Right.
And it's still like that. Someone goes, well, how do you get on this club? And everyone's like, yeah, hang out and get to know people and be good and maybe. It is very.
You know how it happens? It happens when you don't expect it to happen. It's like I find I think we just immerse ourselves into the business. We're like, okay, I'm doing this now. And you got to stick it out, right? You just, you just keep, I mean, I feel like I'm just a piece of poop and I just ultimately stuck to the wall. Like that is really how it all kind of happened for me.
Yeah.
But you just keep doing it and you keep hanging out. And then, again, it takes years unless, you wind up working with somebody and they've got some clout and they can bring you along. I'll just give an example, and he's great, but, Paul Verzi opened up for Bill Burr, and that was amazing. And Paul's got a great career. And so like if you were able to do, wind up meeting a comic, if they really liked you, they took you
absolutely.
That's a one really great way. But you do, but it just morphs over time, and people have shows. It is very, very different than when we entered, when back in the day you can actually go to a club, hang out. Ultimately, it might be 2 a.m, but you'll get a spot. It didn't work that way. We kind of came in when there were a lot of produced shows. So there was that whole animal, and then sort of
bringer shows for new people.
And then the weekend was the favorites and the regulars, and so it's tough. And places like Governors, that's what I wound up doing. Is like, all right, I don't want to run around the city and constantly. And I also, even though I'm a New York City person, but I thought it was important that I get out of Manhattan and I perform for different audiences, because this isn't always the reality. Even going down to Greenwich Village was its own subculture. So I wanted to make sure that I, kind of spread my wings, but it just morphs over time. You meet people. How do you meet people? You have to leave the house. It's, and let me just also remind everybody that, there was not all this social media when we started. So there was the internet and email and obviously all that, but it was pre-Facebook even, and Instagram and all that. So it was it's a completely different way of getting work.
Yeah, totally. And I just found, it took me a really long time to just get to know people. And you're right. It was, everything. It was mostly the other comics. Like, it was just getting to know people, but it was the other comics that gave me work and helped me figure it out, and took me with them to a show, or said, like, we need someone here. Like, it was all the early work. And even now, plenty of the work, it comes from comics.
Right. Exactly. The support system, and exactly. Yeah. Cause I mean, I've never had any representation. I've had bookers call me, that type of thing, but it wasn't like I'm always on their radar. So you have to create your own thing. And for you, to have come here with really just knowing your friend and I assume a few people, I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, this is my home. So like when I left, I went home. Like, it doesn't,
Right.
everything's here.
Yeah.
So I can't even, that's what I'm saying. I'm like always in awe of people that come from other places. That's huge, huge chutzpah. Huge.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, took a while. Stupidity. You have to have. I call it the brave idiot syndrome.
Well, you know what? It's naivety, right? Because if we knew,
Oh God, yeah.
if I saw what went on, I'd be out. There's like no way. I wasn't that brave. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, okay, I'm a hard worker. I know I'm a hard worker,
Right.
So I know I'll do it. I have a good work ethic. That I know. And that's good. You definitely need that, but you need about a million other things. So
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. The work ethic is key. I don't think no one gets to do it by being lazy. Some people are lucky, but it doesn't mean that they're still hardworking. I've never met anyone in this New York stand-up world for sure that was like lazy.
right. And
No
even if you don't particularly care for their comedy or whatnot, which I always say, it's subjective. It is like buying a blouse or ordering a meal. Or it's subjective. It's okay. It doesn't mean that they're not talented. It's just that that's not your type of humor.
Right.
But like you said, it takes a lot of hard work to still get there, no matter how, when people make their job look easy, that's when you know that they're good at what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I have to fast forward and ask you about NPR, and then I want your second book, okay, which I will never forget again. See, Ophira, even though we don't see each other and we don't really get to hang out, which is a shame, there's this bond. So when I see one of my fellow, especially the women, and I truly mean this, succeed or be put on the map for something, I'm like so excited and I'm so happy, because I also know how hard it is to get there. But your second book, Screw Everyone, Sleeping My Way to Monogamy, I remember opening up the New York Post and seeing that huge article. I was hysterical laughing. It was so good. It was so you. You got a lot of press for that book. Now, not to dismiss your first story, Occasional Magic, True Stories about.
Oh, wait. So that book is actually a compilation of stories. The Occasional Magic one is a compilation of stories that is put together by the Moth. So it's my story and many other stories. But yeah, the Screw Everyone, the memoir. So that, the title is obviously it's got a little raciness to it. And, the story was about sleeping around and trying to figure it out and lots of different relationships. Although I will say that there's plenty of sex in that book, but I'm a woman of heart, Ellen. So it's got a lot of heart in it. And yeah, I remember the Post and a bunch of other people, when we started getting press for that book, they all wanted to know the same thing. And it was so funny. It was like the one question I couldn't answer. I had to come up with kind of a general lie. They were like, "What's your number? What's your number?" I was like, "I don't know." It's like, who cares? What's my number? Who cares about your number? It's like and also I gotta say, that's a guy thing a little bit, not to be ridiculous, but I was just like, I don't know. I only kept track of the ones I cared about. How about that? But they all wanted a number, so I was like, 45. I can't remember what number I made up, but I was just like, fine, here's a number. But yeah, it was all this like, what's your number?
You know what I loved? And by the way, I really truly mean this. This is on my need to read book still. Okay, like this is still
easy read, fast read.
I need some, and I've been married a long time too, so I'd like to live a little, vicariously through your past. But I remember, it's so funny, like, because I think I saw you interviewed someplace, but the Post article really stood out in my mind. But my whole point is, like, you put something out there, and then all of a sudden, everybody's Mother Teresa. It's like,
Oh,
oh my God, it's so funny how, you were just, first of all, an honest, and it's also humor. And that was the whole, kind of the
the
whole
whole point.
and all of a sudden it was this very like puritanical, like, oh gee, and it's like, are you shitting me? I just, people like get up on their their high horse. It's like,
Oh yeah.
didn't I see
No.
you banging some guy in the back of the Limelight in '98? Like, really?
Right.
Like,
Oh yeah. Right. And
really?
now all of a sudden you wonder yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, how does your mom? That was the other thing. Everyone was like, how does your mom feel about this? How do it was like the need to infantilize the woman who was talking about this. Like, no one's ever asked a man, oh, you played the field, you're a bit of a player. How does your mom feel about that? How's your dad? What does your dad think about that? They'd be like, huh? I don't know. We never talk about it. But, for me, it was like, how does your mom feel? I was like, fine. She feels fine about it, actually. I don't know if you know anything about the Dutch, but they're pretty open.
It's socially acceptable. So
Yeah, exactly. She was fine.
So what was that like? How was that, like, how did that feel? I mean, you had quite a bit of fame as we were going through that book tour. You were
I mean,
like a great publicity.
Yeah, great publicity, and did a lot of book touring. In some ways it felt fantastic. That was such a humbling project to write a book. It's like harder. It was hard, and it just took a lot of time and energy. And I would have taken forever. I was given a year, and I wanted to push it, and then they were like, "No, you have a year. Like, this is the publishing date, and if you don't meet it, it's a problem." So I met it, but it was a ton of work. And then you have this thing, and it's such a physical object of all of this work, which is cool. And then you go to do these readings, and people show up and buy the book, and you hope that they like it. And then you're also, I think it would be different now, and that wasn't even that long ago, but it was still really heavily just deflecting a lot of questions from people that were about kind of like slut shaming. And like I learned so much when I was doing press on that book about how people felt about women and their approach to sexuality, because I always felt like not everyone, but a lot of people were asking me why I'm not apologizing. And I was like, for what? I guess it just goes against, definitely goes against a lot of Christian ideals, goes against a lot of religious ideals, goes against a lot of traditional ideas about how women should spend their time. And my whole take on it was the only way I could find out what I liked was by seeing what was out there.
Right.
And I wasn't stupid about it. I was young and innocent and made mistakes and had a real taste for adventure. But, I also took care of myself, more or less. As a matter of fact, I paid for myself. I took care of myself. I put clothing on myself, and I held down a job. So I was a perfectly functional member of society. So, so it was like, there would be plenty of people that were like, oh, this is great. I love it. Like, I related to this, and this was me. And I felt like it was women that were 20 years older than me were like, that's nothing on me, darling. Like, they felt like they, did it 4 times as much. And then there were women that were a little bit younger than me that were like, yeah, this is how it is. And then my age and just a little bit older was where all this sort of like rattling around with, is this okay? Is this not okay? Is this proper? Is this not proper? Should we be shaming this? So yeah,
interesting.
It was a sociological experiment that I did not know I was entering.
So where did you come up with the idea to do it? What did it stem from an article that you did and it
You
morphed?
know, it was a mixture of a bunch of things. I started writing those stories down, and then when the storytelling world, which was these short format, the storytelling world, like you're telling 5 to 10 minute stories usually, which is different than like a one person show. So I would go on. There was all these shows, the Moth kind of set the groundwork for it in New York, but there was all these shows, and so I would tell like 5 or 10 minute these narrative stories. Sometimes part of them would make it into the stand up, but really they would make it more into the storytelling stages. And at a Moth show, actually, a literary agent was in the crowd, and she actually revealed to me recently, which I was like, wow, it was her boyfriend, now husband, that said, you should call that woman and see what her deal is. And so we got in contact, and I said, yeah, I have a whole bunch of these stories. I would love to write a book. I mean, it's like a big task. And I pitched many versions of it, and she, had her own feeling of what would sell in the marketplace. But I'll tell you, so when we sort of decided on something that sounded mutually acceptable about the story I wanted to write and the story that she thought she could potentially sell, I had to write the proposal. And writing that proposal, the marketing document, took me a year. It was you're almost writing the whole book.
So was it also very analytical in terms of like where you thought the demographics would be and where it would sell and how much?
Yeah.
It became almost like an accounting function.
It's a whole it's a whole marketing document, and then there's sample chapters, but it's not just sample chapters. They're like full chapters. Like, you say sample chapters, it sounds like a little tidbit. It's like, no, just like a lot of the book. You also give a lot of the book. Right. So there's sort of, in the one I did, there was like about 40 pages of the marketing angle. Like, you're like, here's what it's about. Here's what the journey is. Here's who I am. Here's why this book is important. Here's what other titles are like that are similar, that are successful. Here's why it's different than that, and yeah, it was, I was not used to writing that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Because that's separate from the creative. That's a whole
totally
and research and analysis of this particular product. So which is marketing, obviously. But so I always have a book idea. I've had a million book ideas. I start to write them down. I start to write like a page or two, and then, because 9,000 other things get in the way. And a few years ago, I did meet a literary agent at a Christmas party. And I said, I had a book idea. And so we met like that. We met like right after Christmas. And I gave him a few ideas that I had, and he liked the one. And he said, okay, write out like sample chapters. So I wrote that out. And then, so it's so funny that you say that. And then he goes, okay, now I need like a sample, like a real chapter. And so then I like started to write that, and it was fun. We sort of like stopped. And it was that I kind of kept going, and I feel like I should just write this and then just give it to him, because I can't do this piecemeal thing. So I know a little bit of what you're saying, but what was your process in writing? So let's say they approved it, everything was good, you had the idea. What'd you do? Did you get up in the morning and write 3 hours? Did you have?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was working still a day job to make ends meet, and then I was trying to do stand up to pursue that part of my career. So it just became every other waking moment I worked on that book. And sometimes I took some extra days off work and held back from spending money. Like, I just lived very cheaply. I would just sit down and write for as many, and I don't even think I have that in me anymore, but I would sit down and just write for 4 hours, because I had to. There was chapters being expected, and the deadline is what motivated me. But it would be so hard. But I did find, the more you do it, that's the whole joke of the whole thing, and that's what everyone says, and it's like the worst thing to believe, is that it's like week 1 and week 2 is hard. By week 4, like you sit down and can write because you are in it.
Right, right.
It's just like you have to allow yourself to go through the pain of getting that routine set. So you sit down and you're not like, like I even would have problems where I'm like, I can't find the word I want. What's the fucking word I want? It would drive me crazy and take me out from writing. And then, of course, the more you write, the more that just like it just becomes way more fluid.
So it's like working out, right? The muscle, right?
Totally,
Right.
totally, 100%. It's just
Yeah.
like it's a struggle and it's painful and it's not particularly fun in the beginning. At least that was my feeling.
I mean, I admire you so much for putting that out there, and I'm always in awe of these authors that just churn them out. They're just like
Oh,
whether it's political, whether I mean, it doesn't matter what the genre is. Just the fact that like you'll see them and they'll be, it's like they have another book. Like how they have another
yeah.
book? Like, where they have time to write another book? It's like,
But they're in the zone and they do. And I think, I wish one day maybe I'll be this person. I've never been this person. But it does make sense why people either write like between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. or between, some people get up at 4 a.m., like the off hours. And I've always, or these people that are like, I'm fine on 3 hours of sleep. You know how many hours of sleep I need? 8, 9. If I can. With a kid, I can't anymore. But like, I need a lot of sleep. I am not a morning person. I am not a night person. I am I just always want to not do anything and sleep. So I have to just push up against all of that all the time.
So, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, you did it, and your
Thanks.
show on NPR. So where does that stand? Ask me another. You
Yeah,
got
so it used to be live at the Bell House. Like we would do a live show and that was the show. But
yeah,
now we're doing it virtually, like this. But we don't use contestants. We used to use real contestants to answer the nerdy, like clever trivia questions. So it had a little bit more of like, a pub, like kind of an accelerated pub trivia night. But it's kind of too hard to do that with Zoom and then also expect people to have an audio setup and the whole thing. So we switched, and in the beginning too, because we wanted to transition quickly, and not like things aren't scary now. We're just used to it in a different way, I guess is the truth. But in the beginning, it seemed like really scary. I was like, I'm not calling up random people and telling them that they're wrong. That's the world is scary. So we decided in the beginning that we would just go back to the roster of like the celebrities and the musicians and the actors that we had had on in the past, and basically just get them up. And the quizzes would be a little easier because it's not again now for your spelling bee champ and your Jeopardy buff. It's for a little bit for just like smart people that work in entertainment. And we've just left it like that as we continue. And I don't know how it will morph when things change. It will morph again. We'll see. I mean, it's sort of a great unknown.
where is the show? Where can we find it? What are the time? Is there a specific
Yeah.
time?
So you can podcast it whenever you like. Or if you're in New York, you can listen to it on WNYC, which is probably your deal, on Saturdays at 3.
I hear it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I know her. And
Thanks. Yeah.
it's a fun show. And how did that come about, by the way?
An audition, if you can imagine. It was an audition. It was actually an audition, which
Very
is
cool.
odd for NPR. And I don't even know how often they've done that. And yeah, the whole thing was kind of an experiment for them. But so far so good. I'm always, I just never. No, I think everybody that works on anything, it's not like it's not like a college professor. There's no tenure in
Right.
entertainment. You never get to feel that like, and now this is just going to be. So I'm always like, we're still going.
But you're groomed as a host. I mean, this is a hosting job. This is a real bona fide hosting job.
It is a hosting job. It's true.
So, I mean, what about Millionaire? I mean, I could totally.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, with the with Alex Trebek, R.I.P. One of the one of the great game show hosts in, I guess, now like the world. I mean, Jeopardy, that's like the gold standard. And from what I told, I've never met him, that he was just like a stellar guy. When he passed, many people were like, "It should be you," which I was so like unbelievably flattered.
No, I think we should have a campaign or something. We need to start a Facebook page. I think it's, of course, absolutely. Definitely. Somebody needs to get on that. But
I love your face right now. You're like fired up. You're
yes,
fired up.
yes, I'm serious.
Yep.
I wish I knew somebody. I think that send an audition tape in, whatever. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I did. I talked to an agent. He said I'm on a list. That sounds like something. That sounds like the last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're like very important people. You're on a list, Ophira.
All right, we're gonna manifest. That needs to be out in the universe. We can take a few things out of the universe, and we need to put that one in the universe.
All right, good. I like it.
So, one huge. I mean, it's like the best for last. But we cannot gloss over the fact, because I've known you a long time. You got married. You had a son, a child.
I had a child.
I mean, I love it. It's hilarious. It's.
Anytime you want to come over to the hilarious house, you let me know.
I will. Oh my God, that's so awesome! I'm so happy for you. Your son is like 5 now.
Yeah, he turned 5. Yep, and so yeah, he is a like wow. He's a huge personality. He's a great kid. He gives us a run for our money every day. And yeah, it's obviously a little intense because we don't have access to the full world, so we do the best we can.
I cannot imagine having a 5-year-old. The last year, 4 to 5. Like, what preschool was? Is he
kindergarten? Yeah, kindergarten.
I mean, that's it. Oh, God.
I mean, my joke, Ellen, is like, nobody told me as a mother that I would have to raise my child. Okay, I did not sign up for this. I was farming that shit out.
Oh my God. I mean, it's true. It's like,
yeah,
I can't even imagine. You're the entertainment, you're the teacher, you're the everything. I mean, you don't
everything.
It's not like you don't have any help, but you don't have family.
Yeah, and they the kids, they're no dummies, and they pick up on everything. And so like, I think he's more needy. Definitely. I'll never know because I have nothing to compare it to, and neither does he, frankly. Right. But of course every kid is an attention seeker, but I feel like it's like extra because there's just not enough. There's just not enough.
There's no play. I mean, are you doing any type of play dates? Are you
done some outdoor play dates, and he does have like, he has some days that he goes in for kindergarten.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, it's not right. It's not like a desert, and we live in Park Slope, Brooklyn, which is pretty family friendly. So we'll go to the playground, and there's other kids there. He doesn't know them, but there's kids, and they all have masks on, and they're pretty good about it. Everyone's pretty good about it. Imperfect, but best they can. But yeah, but no one's having birthday parties, for example. I'm not saying like. It's so funny. This is all the stuff that every parent has complained about. Oh, the birthday parties. Oh, the this. And then you take it all away and you're like, oh, that's when we would just sort of like kind of get to know each other. And that's when we like, there's not a lot of instances where people that are not your best friends, or not people that you're going to be like, let's call each other every day. And you don't even know them, because how would I know these people? And so you have no entry into their lives like other parents, or what their kids are up to. So yeah,
you're meeting people with the mask on, which is I hate the mask. I get it. I wear it. I do my thing. I want to be a good citizen and all that, but I just like I feel awkward. It's masked us. It has muzzled us.
Yeah,
basically, what you can't hear. You can't.
Totally.
When we've gone to a restaurant and the server is 6 feet away with the mask on and the music's blaring. It's like,
You can't hear a thing.
how is this all like either shut the music or get closer to me with the mask, but we can't have it all. I mean, just all that awkwardness. Because every other word I'd say is, well, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Or you go, even when you go to the store and they have the mask and the plexiglass. It's like, what? How much do I have? What? How much was it?
So insane. So insane. I know.
My doorman. I mean, my doorman is now behind. I wrote this joke about like the relationship is different, it's like I'm going like before, your doorman's like, hey, how you doing? How's your girlfriend? What's going on? Did I, did they drop that off? Thank you so much. And now it's like I walk up to a window. It's like, can I place a bet on Zeus in the 5th race? I mean, I'm like sliding it underneath, like it's like a teller. So,
I know all that stuff. I know. And actually all of that stuff, when you live in the city, is important. Those little tiny conversations, they are actually important. They make you feel like you're part of something.
Right.
Yeah, I miss them.
I mean, I just give you so much credit. And your husband's in show business, right? He's a director?
Yeah, he produces promos. So he does commercials for television, like editing and producing.
So is he been, because I mean, we've got some production, so he's been able to.
Yeah, he's been freelancing. He's actually a little bit. Yeah, he's doing a whole bunch of stuff with Food Network right now. So yeah, but it sucks for him because he's doing all of these things that, he used to sit in these editing suites that were massive computers with massive memories and hard drives and speed and monitors. And he's like doing this off a laptop at home. Like, it's like insane, uploading things for hours, downloading things for hours. It's like, but that's just what we're doing.
How is it, being a lot of togetherness? Like my husband and I honestly ran out of things to talk about after 3 days. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it was, Brian Kiley wrote this, I think, on Twitter, and I was like, that is so funny. He's a great joke writer.
I love it.
Yeah. But he just wrote, I'm at the point in the pandemic where I'm even getting on my own nerves, And I feel like we have gone in waves where it's like, we have we do have a lot to talk to each other about, just the logistics of running our lives, because the thousands of meals we're cooking and the kid and just like, and things, and we're now all living in this tiny space together. So there's just always like, kind of wear and tear as we're trying to get everything going, and what time someone needs to be in the room for their Zoom, and so I feel like it's I don't think I'm saying something mean when I say I think we could use some social distancing.
Right. Right. I totally get it. I mean, we're home all day, so I totally get it. And we didn't get to, run away to the country or anything like that.
No, the Catskills or Denver or wherever people ran away from.
Right. I was gonna mention prior when you talk about your son, and we were talking about the book. I actually just published my first children's book. It has nothing to do with comedy.
That's amazing.
Thank you. It's about godparents in the Orthodox Christian faith. So, I mean, believe it or not, I'm a Sunday school teacher, which doesn't go with the with the whole comedy thing, but why should it? But it was, so going back to about your book, that took me 5 years from like fruition to, so I could, and to kind of tie it in with your child, because I've taught the little kids, and in writing the book and reading to them and having the pictures match the text and all this, like I had a whole new appreciation for teachers, especially at that age, and getting them to like understand and pictures. I mean, it's a crucial age.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. Ellen, I have to run to a show. I know this sounds crazy.
Oh my God.
I have to go to a Zoom show.
You an hour. Thank you so much. Ophira Eisenberg, your website is ophiraeisenberg.com.
Yep.
Go to your website. You got clips there. Hilarious. NPR. Buy her book.
I want your book. Send me the link to buy your book, please.
Okay. It's Orthodox Christians, but okay,
Great.
I will.
Great. We're open to everything.
I adore you. I love you. I
I'm
think
so happy you asked me. Thank you.
I'm honored and privileged. And thank you so much. Ophira Eisenberg, she's the best. I'm Ellen Karis, Greek Chick Comic, Twitter, Instagram, website. Just listen, we're available for virtual shows.
That's right, we're available.
Hire us together. It would be hilarious.
Fun. Yeah, a really good show. Excellent show.
All right, sweetheart. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye, honey. Bye. Bye.